In the grim darkness of the far future, the galaxy is racked by war, tyranny, and an unrelenting fight for survival. Yet amidst the bleak tapestry of misery and death, one force stands apart from most of the others, a force which do not weep for the fallen, does not mourn its losses, and revels in the carnage and destruction for the sheer joy of it. The Orks. Where others wage war to conquer, to protect, or simply to destroy, the Orks fight because it is their very essence. To them, war is not a necessity, but a celebration, a state of existence that defines their every action. The Orks are not merely a species, they are an unstoppable force of green-skinned fury descending upon the galaxy in endless hordes. Their invasions are not campaigns with defined objectives or carefully laid strategies. Instead, they are chaotic, anarchic storms of destruction, fueled by sheer aggression and an innate hunger for battle. Planets swallowed by this green tide are reduced to nothing but smoldering husks, their defenders overwhelmed by the sheer weight of numbers, as well as the Orks' brutal cunning. They are the galaxy's most widespread menace, their spores drifting silently through the void to infest planets and spawn entire ecosystems of fungal life that eventually culminate in the formation of warbands of Orks. These warbands grow, fester, and explode outward in devastating wargs, vast migrations of war that can obliterate entire star systems. Each warg is a unique, horrifying spectacle defined by the characteristics of the war boss leading it, as well as the brutal creativity of the Ork mob behind him. Yet the true horror of the Orks lie not just in their endless number or their destructive capabilities, it lies in their resilience, their unity of purpose, and their simplicity. While other factions fracture under ideological differences or logistical strain, the Orks thrive in chaos. They are a living paradox, creatures of anarchy who function with brutal efficiency, warlords of destruction who build mighty engines of war, and a force of crude barbarity that nonetheless wields advanced technology. And yet, beneath this savagery lies an unsettling truth, the fact that the Orks are having fun. Where humans see terror, the Orks see amusement. Where the Eldar see tragedy, the Orks see the thrill of combat. Their laughter echoes across battlefields, mocking the suffering of their enemies, as well as the futility of their resistance. To meet the Orks on the field of battle is to face war itself, for they are the embodiment of its unrelenting, merciless, and brutal nature. The Orks are not a problem to be solved, rather they are, in similar fashion to the Tyranids, a force to be endured. Their endless hunger for war, their capacity for destruction, and their crude yet effective ways ensures that the galaxy can never rest. They are a plague that spreads not through malice, but through joy, a grim reminder that in the far future, even war itself can laugh. This is the essence of the green tide, the ceaseless advance of the Orks, whose brutality, resilience, and unbridled lust for battle render them a foe that even the most stalwart defenders of the galaxy struggle to withstand. And yet this is only the beginning, for to truly understand them, one has to delve deeper into their origins, their biology, and the dark legacy of their unending war. They are the manifestation of a universal truth. In war there is life, and in life there is war. To comprehend the true nature of the Orks, one must journey back to the dawn of time, before the rise of the Imperium, before the fall of the Eldar, and before the Chaos Gods fully asserted their presence in the war. The origins of the Orks are tied to an ancient epoch when the galaxy teemed with civilizations, both glorious and terrifying. The Orks are not a naturally evolved species, rather they are a crafted biological weapon during the ancient war in heaven, a cataclysmic conflict between the godlike Old Ones and their enemies, the Necrons and the Satan. The Old Ones, masters of genetic engineering and creators of countless sentient species, designed the Gork to be the ultimate warriors, resilient, adaptable, and utterly fearless. Unlike many of the Old Ones' other creations, which required leadership or guidance, the Gork were self-sustaining. They carried within their genetic code the keys to their own survival and success, a perfect union of biological engineering and psychological conditioning. The Gork were far more advanced than the Orks we know today, capable of disciplined military tactics and wielding far greater intelligence. They were larger, faster, and stronger, truly living weapons, imbued with an instinct for war and a deep, primal urge to fight. The Old Ones programmed them with a unique ecosystem-based reproductive cycle, ensuring that they could thrive and multiply even in the harshest of conditions. This ensured that wherever the Gork waged war, they would not only destroy their enemies, but also reshape the environment into one that supported their continued existence. Yet the collapse of the Old One's civilization during the war in heaven marked the end of the Gork's golden age. With the death of their creators, the Gork began to devolve, their advanced civilization giving way to the savage barbarism of the modern Orks. Over the following millennia, their knowledge and culture was lost, replaced by a crude superstition and an unrelenting focus on battle. What remains of their ancient legacy is deeply embedded within their genetic makeup, manifesting as their unparalleled resilience, their instinctive engineering skills, and their unyielding love of war. Today, the Orks embody the legacy of the Gork in its most brutal and chaotic form. They are living relics of a forgotten age, the crude remnants of a weapon that once stood as a bulwark against cosmic annihilation. Yet in their savagery lies a profound irony. The Old One's greatest creation, designed to defend the galaxy, now stands as one of its greatest threats. For the Orks do not remember their origins, nor do they care. All that matters to them is the fight, the endless joyous slaughter that defines their very existence. Thus the Orks remain a testament to the hubris of their creators, grim evidence that even the most carefully constructed tools of war can spiral beyond control. To understand the Orks, one has to first delve into the grotesque ingenuity of their biology, an underlining of the cold, calculated brilliance of their long-dead creators. Functioning as a self-sustaining ecosystem, the Orks are relentless, not just physically, but in their biology as well. Their very flesh is a weapon, their minds attuned to an instinctual unity that binds them together in an endless pursuit of conflict. Their green skin, leathery and tough, is a direct result of their symbiotic fungal nature, their hybrid biology that grants them resilience against environmental extremes, radiation, and even wounds that would be fatal to most other beings. This biological resilience extends physiologically as well. Orks are naturally muscular with immense physical strength, far exceeding that of an average human. Similarly, Orks biologically possess far fewer nerve endings than, say, the body of Homo sapiens, allowing them to withstand and endure pain to a far larger degree than a regular human, or for that matter, a space marine. Their regenerative capabilities are equally remarkable, allowing them to recover from injuries that would render lesser creatures helpless or mortally wounded. Severed limbs can be crudely reattached, Broken bones mend quickly, and even catastrophic damage or injuries can sometimes simply be shrugged off with nothing more than a guttural growl and a renewed thirst for battle. This biological design ensures their dominance on the field of battle, but also supports their reproduction. Orks propagate not through traditional means, but rather through spores that are released into the environment as they live, fight, and die. These spores germinate, creating a complex fungal ecosystem that eventually gives rise to new orks, rots, and the countless squigs that sustain their society. In the aftermath of a war, a devastated world is often left teeming with ork life, the planet transformed into a breeding ground for their endless war machine. Yet ork biology is only part of the equation. Their unity and strength are amplified by the mysterious power of the WAAAGH. The WAAAGH is a gestalt psychic field generated by the collective will of the ork species. Unlike the disciplined psychic powers of the Eldar or the sorcerous corruption of chaos, the WAAAGH is raw, instinctive, and unique to the orks. It is the very essence that binds them together, enhancing their natural strength, bolstering their morale, and fueling their seemingly miraculous technology. The WAAAGH is both a unifying force and a weapon. It thrives on the emotions and beliefs of the orks, growing ever stronger as their numbers swell and their excitement for battle intensifies. When orks gather in great numbers, the power of the WAAAGH becomes palpable, bending reality to their collective will. Their ramshackle weapons and vehicles, crude and nonsensical by conventional standards, function not because of engineering precision, but simply because the orks believe they should. A weapon that shouldn't be able to fire will roar to life, a jury-rigged fighter plane will soar, and even a bomb that should be inert will explode spectacularly, all thanks to the sheer conviction of the very orks that wield them. This psychic field also influences their leaders. War bosses and warlords rise to power not merely through brute strength, but because they possess an innate connection to the WAAAGH that functions to amplify their presence. This triggers an essential feedback loop, which is one of the prime movers behind the ork presence and domination across the galaxy. For the larger and more dominant the ork, the greater their influence over the WAAAGH becomes, and the greater their influence over the WAAAGH, the more dominant the ork grows, gathering more followers, and exponentially more strength. As this connection of the warlord draws in other orks to its banner, it fuels the relentless momentum of their campaigns in wave after wave of greenskin tides. In the chaos of an ork horde, it is the very WAAAGH that provides a semblance of cohesion, turning this anarchic mob into a directed, devastating tidal wave of ceaseless violence. But one of the most horrifying aspects of ork biology, which they share with their precursors the Gork, is their genetic adaptation to war itself. For orks do not merely endure hardship, they thrive in it. As an ork is pushed in battle, their bodies naturally harden and strengthen throughout the conflict, their injuries fueling further aggression rather than hindering them. Pain and destruction only drives them forward, ensuring that the more they fight, the stronger they become. Worse still, the bloodshed of war serves as fertile ground for their fungal reproduction, meaning the harder that one opposes the orks, the more of them will inevitably emerge. However, despite the ferocity and unity that the war brings, it is not without its weaknesses. For the same psychic energy that binds the orks together also amplifies their rivalries and infighting. Challenges to leadership are constant and brutal among the ork, as the lower-ranking soldiers constantly seek to overthrow their superiors. This inherent instability ensures that even the most formidable warg is often as self-destructive as it is devastating to its enemies. Ultimately, Ork biology and the power of the warg are inseparable, each feeding into the other to create a force of destruction that the galaxy cannot ignore. The Ork are a living, breathing storm, and the warg is its thunderous heart. Together, they embody an unstoppable tide of chaos and violence that no wall, no army, and no fleet can truly withstand. The warg may be the beating heart of the orc species, but its lifeblood courses through the veins of their clans, each embodying a distinct aspect of orc culture. As the green tide flows across the galaxy, the clans emerge as the conduits through which the orcs channel their insatiable energy. These clans are not rigid hierarchies or fixed factions, they are rather fluid identities forged by shared beliefs, habits, and a collective drive for destruction. The clans arise naturally within orc society, shaped by the warg itself. Like currents in a storm-lashed sea, they swirl and shift, coalescing into distinct forces that both compete and cooperate in their eternal quest for war. The clans grant orcs a sense of purpose beyond the sheer joy of violence, uniting them under banners that reflect their favorite methods of mayhem. Among these clans is the brutal Goths, the epitome of raw orc aggression. Goths believe that nothing solves a problem better than a good crumpin', and their preference for up-close and personal combat is reflected in their heavy, close-quarters weaponry. Clad in black, and often bearing checkered pattern as a mark of their lineage, the Goths are the battering ram of any warg, driven by their singular devotion to smashing, breaking, and overwhelming their enemies with sheer brute force. In stark contrast stand the flamboyant and reckless evil sons who live for the thrill of speed. The roar of an engine and the screech of tires are the symphony of a battle. These speed-obsessed maniacs are always in pursuit of the fastest vehicles and the most exhilarating chases, plastering their machines with red paint in the unshakable belief that anything red simply moves faster than anything that is not. For the evil sons, war is not just a battle, it is a race, and victory is measured in how much destruction they can cause at breakneck speed. Equally distinct are the cunning and resourceful Bad Moons, the wealthiest of the Ork clans. Their unique biology causes their teeth, which is used as a currency among the orcs, to grow faster than any other clans, making them the de facto aristocrats of the orc society. This wealth is reflected in their obsession with ostentatious display of power, from the shiniest weapons to the most extravagant war machines. To the Bad Moons, war is not just about winning, but about winning with style, a philosophy that often brings them both envy and respect from their fellow orcs. Then, there are the fanatical snakebites, who cling to the old ways with a ferocious tenacity. These traditionalists shun much of the technology embraced by other clans, favoring squigs, beasts, and crude tools over ramshackle vehicles and guns. Their scars and tattoos tell stories of resilience and savage survival, and their connection to the primal aspects of orc life makes them uniquely brutal and enduring in battle. For the snakebites, the old ways are the best ways, and they fight with a ferocity that honors their ancestors. On the other hand of the spectrum lie the bizarre and eccentric Death Skulls, a clan defined by their kleptomania and improvisational genius. Death Skulls are scavengers and looters. Their battlefield is a treasure trove, and anything shiny, valuable, or even vaguely useful is fair game. Their war gear is a chaotic patchwork of stolen parts, salvaged machines, and borrowed weapons, reflecting their opportunistic and highly adaptive nature. Finally, There are the shadowy and sinister Bloodaaghs, the most unorky of all orcs. The Bloodaaghs have earned a reputation as outcasts and traitors for their suspiciously unorky behavior, such as employing tactics, strategy, and even the most horrifying of all, working with non-orcs. These mercenary-minded creatures have a knack for ambushes, camouflage, and guerrilla warfare, and they are as likely to sell their services to an enemy as they are to crush them beneath their boots. To many orcs, the Bloodaaghs are dangerously unpredictable, yet their unique approach to war makes them a potent force in any warg. Each of these clans brings their own flavor to the Green Tide, enriching the chaos of an orc invasion with their distinct forms of destruction. Yet despite their differences, all orcs share the same insatiable thirst for violence and conquest. The clans are less about division and more about expression, granting the orcs a kaleidoscope of ways to indulge in their single-minded purpose and quest for utter carnage and chaos. Whether through brute strength, reckless speed, cunning theft, or calculated ambushes, the varieties of clans ensure that every warg is a symphony of destruction, a true testament to the orc's endless ingenuity in the concept of waging war. Bound together by the warg and driven by their shared need for conflict, the orc clans are a chaotic mosaic of savagery, greed, and ingenuity. They are not rivals, but facets of the same unstoppable force, a storm that grows stronger as its waves and currents collide and merge. Together, they embody the unrelenting and indomitable nature of the orcs, each clan contributing to the green tidal wave that roars across the stars. From the chaos of the clans and the deafening roar of the war arises a hierarchy that is as brutal and violent as the very orc species itself. At its apex stand the war bosses, towering titans of muscle and brutality, leaders whose very presence can cow lesser orcs into obedience, for to lead among the greenskins is not a matter of birthright or lineage. It is a mantle earned through strength, cunning, and an unrelenting capacity for violence. In orc society, the law is quite simple. The biggest, meanest orc is the boss, and woe betide any who dare challenge their rule. War bosses are not mere warriors, they are the very avatars of the warg itself. Their physical might is unparalleled, their hulking forms often adorned with crude but fearsome armor, trophies of past conquests, and weapons that could level entire buildings with a single swing. Yet, it is not strength alone that elevates a war boss, it is their ability to inspire, or more accurately, terrify their followers into unthinking loyalty. A war boss embodies the orc belief that might makes right, and their authority extends only as far as their ability to maintain it. Should a war boss falter, there is no mercy, no reprieve, only the brutal justice of a challenger's blade or fist. Supporting these tyrannical overlords are the knobs, the elite of orc society, and the enforcers of the war boss's will. These burly warriors serve as lieutenants, bodyguards, and commanders, ruling over mobs of boys with a mix of intimidation and violence. Knobs are not mere foot soldiers, they are veterans of countless battles, their scars and grotesque augmentations marking them as survivors of the brutal trials that has claimed so many others attempting to be in their place. Each knob commands respect through raw power, their position, just like the war boss, secured only by their ability to dominate those beneath them. The relationship between a war boss and their knobs is one of mutual utility, bound together by the shared understanding that strength and victory are the two only currencies that matter. The Knobs enforce the war boss's rule, ensuring that the Ork mobs stay focused on the fight ahead rather than squabbling amongst themselves. In turn, a war boss rewards their Knobs with the choicest loot and the promise of even greater battles to come. This fragile balance of power is maintained by the unspoken threat of violence, for should a war boss ever grow weak or indecisive, it is often the Knobs who are the first to rise against them. Together, the war bosses and the Knobs form the backbone of Ork leadership, guiding their unruly hordes towards ever greater acts of destruction. Under their brutal command, the Green Tide transforms from a chaotic mob into a weapon of galactic devastation. A war boss's ambitions are as vast as the galaxy itself, limited only by the number of boys they can muster and the strength of their combined WAAAGH. Their towering ego drives them to seek out greater and greater foes, from rival war bosses to entire planets, their insatiable hunger for combat fueling the Orks' endless conquests. Yet leadership among the Orks is a precarious thing, as a war boss must constantly prove their dominance and worth, not just to their enemies, but especially to their own kind as well. Every battle is a test, every victory a temporary reprieve from the inevitable challenge to their rule. The WAAAGH is a living force, and its currents can shift at a moment's notice, sweeping away even the mightiest war boss in the favor of a new champion. It is a cycle of brutality and ambition, a never-ending struggle that mirrors the Orks' own chaotic nature. To an outsider, the hierarchy of the Orks may seem like madness, a system built on violence and treachery, held together by nothing more than raw power. Yet it is precisely this chaos that makes the Orks so dangerous, for in the heart of every war boss burns the unshakable belief that they are destined for greatness, that their WAAAGH will be the one to consume the galaxy in a green tide of fury. And as long as that belief endures, the Orks will remain an indomitable force, their leaders driving them ever onward toward war without an end. In the hierarchy beneath the towering war bosses and their Knobs, a different kind of power churns within the Ork war machine, one born not of brute strength, but of twisted ingenuity, biological necessity, and a connection to the arcane forces of the WAAAGH. To maintain their endless conquests, the Orks rely on an eclectic cadre of specialists, each as bizarre and unhinged as the green-skinned masses they serve. Among these are the Mech Boys, the mad inventors and engineers of the Ork race. They are the architects of destruction, crafting the crude yet devastating war machines that define the madness of Ork warfare. Where humans might rely on blueprints and scientific principles, Mech Boys operate on instinct and an uncanny knack for coupling together technology that shouldn't work, but somehow does. They fashion towering walkers, roaring vehicles, and weapons of nightmarish power, often scavenging parts from the wreckage of their enemies, or each other. To a Mech Boy, the act of building is an extension of their nature, a drive they can no more ignore than an Ork can resist a good scrap. Their creations, powered by the Orks' collective belief in their efficacy, are as much a testament to their race's bizarre psychology as they are to the Mech Boys' skill. Standing alongside the Mech Boys are the Pain Boys, grotesque surgeons whose expertise lies in patching up the wounded, or more accurately, experimenting on the broken. To them, every Ork body is a canvas for experimentation, and every injury an opportunity to tinker with the limits of biology. Whether stitching a severed limb back into place or grafting on mechanical augmentations, a pain boy's work is as likely to maim as it is to heal. Yet for all their haphazard methods, they are indispensable to Orc society, ensuring that the greenskins can return to the battlefield time and time again, often with improvements that make them even deadlier. But perhaps the most unnerving of the Orc specialists are the Weird Boys, psychers whose minds are conduits for the roiling energies of the Warg. Unlike the disciplined psychers of the Imperium or the Eldari, Weird Boys are volatile and unpredictable. Their power is a reflection of the collective aggression and belief of the Orc race. They channel this psychic energy into devastating displays of raw power, from crackling bolts of energy to explosions that vaporize both friend and foe alike. Yet this connection to the Warg is as much a curse as it is a gift. The psychic overload of battle can drive a Weird Boy to madness, resulting in their heads bursting in spectacular displays of uncontrolled power. For this reason, they are both revered and feared by their kin, their presence the very essence of a double-edged sword on the battlefield. Each of these specialists serves a unique purpose within the Orc war machine, their contributions ensuring that the Green Tide remains an unstoppable force. The Mech Boys build the tools of war, the Pain Boys keep the fighters in the fray, and the Weird Boys unleash the unpredictable raw energy of the war in apocalyptic displays of power. Together, they all embody the chaotic ingenuity of the Orcs, turning their unrelenting aggression into a force that can challenge even the most of advanced civilizations. It is through these specialists that the Orcs reveal a truth that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring, that their strength lies not just in their numbers and their brutality, but in their unorthodox ability to adapt, to innovate, and to thrive in the chaos they create. From the frenzied genius of the Mech Boys springs one of the most extraordinary and terrifying aspects of the Orc race, their engineering. As the Green Tide marches across the galaxy, it is often accompanied by roaring war machines that defy all logic, towering contraptions of crude metal and sheer audacity. The concept of Ork engineering in action is a glimpse of the unfiltered chaos that exists within their minds, a chaotic blend of brute force, reckless ambition, and a peculiar genius born from instinct rather than reason, no different than a cheetah feeling the urge to hunt, or a spider's desire to build its own webs. Ork engineering is the concept of madness given form. Where other civilizations rely on meticulous design and scientific rigor, the Orcs operate on pure intuition. Mech Boys cobble together weapons, vehicles, and gargantuan war machines from scavenged parts and looted technology, their designs guided less by practicality and more by a sense of what looks like it could potentially kill something. A salvaged ramshackle cannon, for example, might be bolted to the side of a battered tank with additional barrels haphazardly attached to it with the intention of making it hit harder. To an outsider, these constructs follow the same principles as that of a 5-year-old putting together a make-believe contraption and should by logic fall apart at the first sign of stress. Yet on the battlefield, they roar to life with devastating effectiveness. This inexplicable functionality stems not from the machines themselves, nor from the Orcs' ingenuity, but rather from the Orcs' collective belief in their creations. The Warg, the psychic gestalt of Orc society, imbues their contraptions with a sort of supernatural reliability. A wrecked and poorly welded engine will roar to life simply because the Orcs believe it will. A weapon lacking any visible ammunition will fire rapidly in devastating fashion simply because the Orc wielding it expects it to work. To the orcs, this is not magic, but common sense. The notions of their machines failing is as alien to them as the concept of peace. Where orc engineering truly thrives is in its reckless ingenuity, as their war machines elevate that chaos of battle to apocalyptic proportions. From hulking walkers to roaring tanks, these vehicles are not merely tools of war, but reflections of orc culture, loud, brutal, and unstoppable. Each machine is unique, built from whatever materials the makeboy could scavenge or loot, and powered as much by orc belief as by their crude engines. What orc machinery lacks in sophistication, they more than make up for in raw destructive power. The battle wagon, a staple of orc warfare, epitomizes this philosophy of crude ingenuity. These massive, heavily armored transports are bristling with weaponry capable of carrying mobs of orcs into the heart of battle. Yet no two battle wagons are alike. One may be a lumbering fortress adorned with crude spikes and cannons, while another might sport enormous wheels and a dementedly oversized wrecking ball. To the orcs, the battle wagon is a rolling monument to their unstoppable might, crashing through enemy lines with gleeful abandon. Then there are the Gorkanauts and the Morkanauts, towering walkers dedicated to the twin gods of the orc pantheon. The Gorkanaut is a brutal killing machine, festooned with claws, guns, and missile launchers, designed to embody the raw aggression of Gork. The Morkanaut, by contrast, represents Mork's cunning and is equipped with shields and teleportation devices that allows it to baffle enemies before unleashing its destructive arsenal. Both are testaments to the makeboy's ability to create machines that are as much shrines to the orc belief as they are engines of war and destruction. Another example stands as the Kill Crusher, a massive track behemoth packed to the brim with weapons, serving as a mobile fortress capable of leveling entire cities with its relentless firepower. Yet unlike the haphazard construction of smaller vehicles, the Kill Crusher's size and durability mark it as a centerpiece of an orc warg, inspiring awe among the greenskins and terror in their foes. In the skies, orc war machines take to the air with equal recklessness. The Dakajet, a nimble aircraft loaded with oversized guns, streaks across battlefields in a cacophony of roaring engines and unrelenting firepower. The Blitzer bomber, on the other hand, takes a more direct approach, diving headlong into enemy lines to unleash devastating payloads before crashing gloriously or surviving to do it again. These crude flyers defy physics as much as they defy their enemy, embodying the orcs' disdain for both logic as well as their love for destruction, and still continuing to defy science and all logic. At the heart of orc engineering lies the Stomper, a hulking war machine that epitomizes their reckless creativity. Towering over the battlefield, the Stomper is a walking fortress, saturated with weapons and crude armor plating. Each Stomper is unique, a reflection of its makeboy creator's whims and the resources at hand. Some are equipped with massive saw blades and flamethrowers, others with crude but devastating artillery. Yet regardless of its specific configuration, the Stomper is an amalgamation of scrap, mechanical absurdities, and the orcs' ability to turn their very beliefs into a physical nightmare for their enemies. These contraptions are but a few among the many marvels of orc engineering, each machine a testament to the madness of the race. For one thing is certain, each and every one of these metal amalgamations are all death traps, a mechanical death sentence for its crew, and the instrument of the enemy's annihilation. Held together by nothing but spit, prayers to Gork, and possibly Mork, as well as a liberal application of rivets, their ramshackle construction means that they are as prone to exploding spectacularly as they are to destroying their enemies. Yet to the Orks, this is all part of the fun. Whether a war machine succeeds or fails in its mission, it all contributes to the chaos of the war, ensuring that every battle is an unforgettable spectacle of carnage and mayhem. But Ork engineering is not confined to the battlefield alone. Their settlements, often sprawling collections of shanties and fortresses, are constructed with the very same slapdash enthusiasm. Massive factories churn out weapons and war machines at a relentless pace, fueled by the mech boys' insatiable drive to create. The sound of clanging metal, roaring engines, and boisterous laughter fills the air, a chaotic symphony that reflects the Orks' boundless energy and unshakable confidence. In the end, Ork engineering is a paradox, a fusion of madness and genius, chaos and order, destruction and creation. For the Orks, their machines are not just tools of war, but rather extensions of their very essence, brutal, relentless, and illogical. But the deafening roar of war machines and the relentless tide of greenskins are not merely the sum of their crude technology and savage numbers, for together they manifest something far greater, an unquantifiable and unparalleled force, known simply as the WAAAGH. For the WAAAGH is not just a battle cry or a gathering of orcs. It is a force of nature, raw and untamed, a force that bends the galaxy to the will of the greenskins. It is their essence, their warlike spirit made manifest, a storm of destruction that sweeps across the stars with an inevitability that rivals the warp storms themselves. The war begins as a whisper, a murmur of aggression carried across the vast Ork tribes. One war boss rises above the others, uniting the clans through sheer brutality or cunning, and with him, a wave of purpose is created. This is not a purpose rooted in strategy or reason, but a primal urge, the need to fight, to conquer, to destroy. As the Orks gather in ever-growing numbers, their collective energy feeds the WAAAGH, transforming it into an unstoppable juggernaut. But the war is more than the sum of its participants. It is both a military crusade and a psychic phenomenon in conjunction. Every single greenskin is a psychic conduit, their belief and energy unconsciously feeding into the WAAAGH, and as it grows, so too does the power of their crude technology, their collective confidence, and their sheer audacity. This is the prime mover, which allows guns that should not fire to do so with alarming ferocity. Seemingly worthless engines, coupled together from scrap, will suddenly roar to life as if imbued with purpose itself, all simply because the Orks perceive it to be true. The stronger the Orks believe themselves to be, the more this truth manifests itself within reality. The majority of Orks are unaware of this phenomena and do not question how or why it works. Even fewer grasp the concept or nature of the phenomenon, yet despite their lack of awareness, each and every Ork unknowingly contributes to this psychic tidal wave that is the WAAAGH. Even the laws of reality seem to bend in favor of the greenskins. Their psychic field grows stronger with every Ork that joins the fray, manifesting in ways that defy all logic and reasons. Bullets curve to find their marks. Vehicles survive impacts that would obliterate more sophisticated machines, and the Orks themselves are emboldened to acts of lunacy that somehow manages to succeed. This is a concept that the Imperium scholars struggle to quantify, yet what they seem to be able to conclude is the simple truth that, if the Orks believe it enough, it will happen. The WAAAGH is not confined to any one planet or region. Like a wildfire, it spreads uncontrollably, leaping from system to system as the Orks are drawn ever forward by the promise of battle. Entire worlds are consumed in this chaos, the defenders overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the green tide that swallows them. Even those who survive to tell the tale find themselves haunted by the experience, for the WAAAGH leaves behind not just devastation, but the lingering echoes of its terrible energy, a psychic scar upon the galaxy. Still, the WAAAGH is not simply a threat to those who stand in its path. It is, like the Orks themselves, a paradox, a phenomenon that is both terrifying and absurd. To the Orks, it is life itself, the thrill of the fight, the joy of chaos, and the belief that every day brings another opportunity for glorious violence. But to the rest of the galaxy, it is a nightmare that cannot be reasoned with, a force of nature that cannot be contained. And like an ocean, its waves are always rising somewhere in the galaxy, promising that the threat of the Orks will never, ever stop. Wherever their tides surge, the Orks bring with them a simple truth. They were born to fight, and every other species is a potential enemy, a target, or at best, a source of amusement. For the Orks, the galaxy is not a vast and indifferent void, but a sprawling playground filled with opportunities to test their strength, take in the chaos, and revel in the violence. In their unending quest for war, the Orks care little for borders, treaties, or alliances. The Imperium of Man, with its endless bureaucracy and fragile unity, is an ever-tempting target for the Greenskins. To them, humanity's vast worlds and armies are simply resources waiting to be looted, and foes ready to be fought. Ork invasions have shattered countless planetary defenses, turning once thriving imperial colonies into wastelands littered with the broken remains of men and machines. Yet the Orks are not content to stop there. Their attacks often leave the Imperium scrambling to respond, stretching its forces thin and sowing chaos on a scale that weaken even the Emperor's vast domain. Yet the Orks do not reserve their brutality solely for humanity. The Eldar, ancient and arrogant, are frequent victims of the Orks' gleeful violence as well. The Greenskins take a particular joy in destroying the graceful structures and intricate war machines of the Eldar, mocking their precision with their crude yet devastating weaponry. For the Eldar, every encounter with the Orks is a bitter reminder of their own dwindling power, for the Orks' numbers and their ferocity are nothing but endless. The Tau, with their aspirations of unity and progress, are another frequent target of the Greenskins' aggression. To the Orks, the Tau's ideals are laughable. The only form of unity they understand is a warband on the march, and progress is measured by the size of the explosions they leave behind. Tau fortresses, with their gleaming technology, often fall to the relentless hammering of Ork war machines. And for every Tau victory, the Orks simply return in greater numbers, eager for a rematch. Even the Necrons, cold and unfeeling in their pursuit of dominion, find themselves harassed by the Orks, for the Greenskins have no fear of the ancient deathless legions, for fear is as alien to them as the concept of peace and prosperity. Instead, they view the Necrons as another worthy opponent, one that provides an endless supply of tough foes to bash and break. The Necrons, for all their technological superiority, find the Orks maddeningly persistent, their boundless energy and enthusiasm defying the cold logic of the Necron dynasties. The Tyranids too are not immune to the Orks' desire for conflict, for to the Greenskins, the Tyranids are the perfect adversary, vast swarms of ferocious alien beasts, endless in number and unequaled in their brutal relentlessness. Unlike the other species in the galaxy, the Orks do not see the Tyranids as a threat to their existence, but rather as an enemy worthy of endless war, one that offers an inexhaustible supply of battle and carnage. Entire wargs have hurled themselves against the Tyranid fleets, turning the void into a churning sea of destruction in battles of apocalyptic proportions. Where lesser races see the Tyranids as the source of inevitable extinction, the Ork sees them as the ultimate scrap, one that may never end. And so, the Orks continue their endless conquest of the galaxy, for their strength lies not only in their numbers, but in their resilience, their sheer joy in battle, and their ability to thrive on chaos. No matter the foe, no matter the odds, the Orks will always find a way to fight, to destroy, and to revel in the carnage. The relentless, bloodthirsty tide of the Orks is not merely chaos unbound. It is a reflection of their gods, Gork and Mork, whose crude, brutal essence shapes every aspect of Ork existence. To the greenskins, these twin deities are not distant or abstract. They are living forces that embody everything the Orks hold sacred: strength, cunning, and the thrill of endless violence. Gork, the brutal but cunning, is the embodiment of raw power and aggression. He is the archetype of the unstoppable warrior, always ready to smash, crush, and pulverize any who stand in his way. In battle, Gork is the primal force driving the Orks' unrelenting savagery, urging them forward with a single-minded desire to destroy. He is the blunt instrument, the hammer that knows only one solution to every problem: overwhelming force. Mork, the cunning but brutal, complements Gork as the embodiment of guile and trickery. While no less violent, Mork represents the devious side of Ork warfare: the ambushes, the clever traps, and the unexpectedly effective tactics that catch their enemies off guard. Mork delights in the chaos of battle, not just for its carnage, but for the opportunity to outsmart and humiliate his foes. He is the unpredictable blade, the schemer who strikes when least expected. And though Gork and Mork are distinct, they are inseparable in the minds of the Orks. Together, they represent the duality of the greenskins' existence: the raw power to destroy anything in their path, and the cleverness to outwit even the most formidable of opponents. Ork warbands often claim to act in the name of one god or the other, but in truth, both deities are worshipped equally, their influence felt in every warg and every chaotic act of creation or destruction. The worship of Gork and Mork is not confined to rituals or prayers in the traditional sense. Orks do not kneel in reverence or build temples to their gods. Instead, they honor Gork and Mork through their actions. Every fight, every explosion, every act of cunning or brute force is an offering to the twin gods. When Orks gather in massive wargs, they believe that Gork and Mork themselves watch from the immaterium, roaring with laughter and pride as their chosen race brings chaos to the galaxy. The influence of Gork and Mork extends even into the psychic realm. The warg energy that permeates Ork society is thought to be a manifestation of their god's will, a collective psychic force that binds the Orks together and drives their unrelenting need for war. Weird Boyz, the shamans of the Orks, channel this energy in unpredictable and devastating ways, their wild powers seen as direct gifts from Gork and Mork. Some speculate that Gork and Mork are manifestations of the Orks' collective psyche, while others believe they are true warp entities, fed and strengthened by the greenskins' endless violence and fervent belief. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the Orks' faith in their gods is unshakable, and their devotion drives them to ever greater acts of carnage and cunning. The names of Gork and Mork are shouted by Orks in battle cries and echoed in the roars of their war machines. These twin gods are not just deities to the greenskins, they are the embodiment of everything the Orks aspire to be: unstoppable, unrelenting, and utterly unpredictable. Wherever the Orks go, the shadow of Gork and Mork looms large, their laughter ringing out across the immaterium as their chosen race fulfills its divine purpose to fight, destroy, and revel in the chaos of the galaxy. Yet the Orks' belief in Gork and Mork is not merely a foundation for their faith, it is a belief that spills over into every aspect of their culture, shaping a labyrinth of superstitions that dictate their behavior, their warcraft, and even their wild engineering. These superstitions, completely absurd to outsiders, but gospel to the greenskins, reveal the strange and chaotic inner workings of the Ork psyche, a psyche that is somehow both simple and maddeningly complex. Ork superstitions begin with color, a cornerstone of their crude, yet strangely effective worldview. To the Orks, colors are not just hues, but potent talismans imbued with power. Red, for instance, is universally recognized among the greenskins as the color of speed. Red ones go faster is not just a saying, it is an unshakable truth to the Orks. Vehicles daubed in red paint seems to defy logic, tearing across battlefields with a reckless velocity that seems to defy all mechanical explanation. Blue, on the other hand, is the color of luck. Orks painted in blue or carrying blue trinkets believe themselves to be favored by Gork and Mork, dodging bullets and landing miraculous blows in battle that seem to defy all logic. Yellow is associated with wealth, seen as the color of big explosions and daga, while green naturally is Ork life itself. Green is the representation of strength and unity. To quote the Orks themselves, green is best, for to them, green is not just their skin or a color, it is their identity. Black is the color of toughness and brutality. Orks believe that black makes them stronger and harder to kill, and it is often the favorite color by the fiercest and most aggressive warbands. War bosses and knobs, looking to intimidate their foes, will often wear black armor or paint their banners in dark, menacing tones. White holds a unique place in Ork superstition, representing leadership and authority. Only the most prominent Ork leaders, such as war bosses or warlords, dare to wear white, as it marks them as the ultimate bosses of their warbands. White is often painted on tusks, banners, or helmets as a way to distinguish high-ranking individuals from the teeming masses of boys. Purple is a lesser-known but highly significant color in Ork superstition, representing stealth. To the Orks, purple is the color of invisibility. Paradoxical as it may sound, they believe that anything painted purple is harder to see, even when it's in plain, visible sight. This belief leads to some Ork commandos, greenskin specialists in sabotage and assassination, adorning themselves with purple war painting or clothing, trusting in the fact that it undeniably makes them undetectable to their enemies. This power of belief in color sits at the heart of Ork superstitions, yet it extends far beyond paint jobs. Orks are unique in the galaxy for their ability to unconsciously shape reality around them simply through collective thought. This phenomenon, known as the WAAAGH field, allows their superstitions to manifest in ways that defy conventional understanding. One of the most telling examples of this Ork manifestation lies in their approach to constructing spacecrafts. For the Orks, a spaceship isn't just a vessel to traverse the void, it is a reflection of their war-minded worldview and unshakable belief in function over form. Among their countless quirks, one feature stands out among the rest, as Ork spaceships often have massive crude windows installed on their bridges or hulls. The logic is simple. How can the pilot know where he's going if he can't see it? They believe that having a clear view of their destination makes the ship fly faster, hit harder, and even just look scarier. This belief is so deeply ingrained that these windows are often installed haphazardly with no regard for structural integrity or protection against the vacuum of space. Yet in this bizarre, reality warping way of the Orks, these slapdash additions doesn't doom their ships to failure. Instead, the Ork energy, the collective psychic field of the greenskin, bends reality around them to make their expectations become truth. These windows, while a glaring design flaw by any rational standard, seem to work simply because the Orks believe they must. But the absurdity doesn't end there. Many Ork windows are adorned with crude glyphs, garish symbols, or hastily painted images meant to intimidate their enemies or appease Gork and Mork, for these decorations are not just aesthetic, they are yet another layer of the Ork superstition. An Ork pilot may firmly believe that a window painted with a giant snarling face or the jagged-toothed maw of Gork will make a ship immune to enemy fire, and, to an extent, this belief has a strange power of its own as well. Even their crude weapons and engineering benefit from this psychic phenomenon as well. An Ork shooter might appear to be little more than a metal pipe with a trigger, but when wielded by a greenskin, it can suddenly unleash a storm of deadly projectiles. Yet on top of this, if an Ork thinks his gun should shoot further or hit harder, the collective part of the Ork field will make it so. Similarly, an Ork vehicle, barely held together by human standards, a wrecked patchwork of rusted plates and nonsensical wiring, will suddenly roar to life and perform feats of impossible endurance simply because the Orks crewing it believe that it should. This psychic power is neither deliberate nor controlled. It is an unconscious force existing within the being of every Ork, with the sheer weight of each greenskin and their belief collectively imposing itself on reality. Orks also have a strange aversion to cleaning their weapons. They believe that dirt, grime, and soot add character to their dagger and makes it more killy. In Ork superstition, a clean gun is considered unreliable as it hasn't yet proven itself in battle. Instead, Orks will lovingly smash, bash, and tinker with their weapons, convinced that this will make them deadlier. Yet beyond their practical applications, Ork superstitions also govern their everyday lives. Orks avoid actions they deem unlucky, such as looting a corpse before the proper rites are observed, which usually involves a great deal of stomping and yelling. Mech boys are particularly prone to ritualistic behavior, performing bizarre and unnecessary ceremonies before assembling a piece of machinery. To them, a machine that hasn't been properly shouted at, banged at with the right tools, or coated in sacred oils is a piece of machinery that is doomed to failure. Yet the Weird Boys, the psychic conduits of the Orks, are perhaps the most superstitious of them all. Their connection to the WAAAGH energy makes them hypersensitive to omens and signs. They refuse to act without the proper alignment of stars or the right amount of yelling from their comrades. To other Orks, these eccentricities are not seen as odd, but as direct proof of the Weird Boys' connection to Gork and Mork. Orks also place immense value on teeth, which serve as their currency within their society. However, the superstition goes deeper, as Orks believe that the size and number of teeth in a war boss's jaw is in direct correlation of their strength and worthiness to lead. The act of ripping teeth out of a defeated opponent isn't just for wealth, It is a symbolic gesture of dominance. Orcs also believe that the bigger an orc's teeth, the more proper they are, associating large fangs with good luck and fighting prowess. Orc warbands are also deeply superstitious about leadership. A war boss who loses a fight is often seen as having lost the favor of the gods, while one who claims victory in the most brutal and spectacular fashion is thought to be blessed by Gork and Mork themselves. This belief fuels an endless cycle of challenges and infighting, as every orc constantly seeks to prove their worthiness in the eyes of their gods. The orc superstitions also extend to their relationship with their own and other races. As an example, despite their usefulness, orc commandos are treated with suspicion and wariness by other orcs. Their sneaky tactics are seen as unorky, and their stealthy demeanor leads others to believe they're cursed or untrustworthy. Some warbands consider it bad luck to speak to a commando outside of battle, fearing that their sneakiness might rub off in undesirable ways. In terms of other factions, the orcs hold a peculiar reverence for particularly tough enemies, seeing them as worthy opponents blessed with their own form of luck or strength. At the same time, they view weaker foes with disdain, often attributing their defeats to bad luck rather than any failure on their part. To an orc, every battle is a test of Gork and Mork's favor, and every victory is proof of their god's strength. This web of beliefs and ritual, nonsensical as it may seem, is a cornerstone of orc culture. It is what binds them all together in a chaotic yet strangely cohesive society, one that thrives on violence, humor, and the unshakable conviction that they are the favorite children of the cosmos. Through their superstitions, the orcs find purpose, direction, and a sense of unity that allow them to wage their endless war against the galaxy. The fight against the orcs is nothing like resisting a cause or an empire, for it is a struggle against the force of nature itself. Like an infestation, the orcs spread not just through battle, but through biology. When they die, they do not truly vanish. Given time, the corpses of a defeated orc army becomes the very foundation for the next invasion, ready to pick up the fight where their predecessors fell short. This cyclical nature makes their eradication nearly impossible, as even a victory against them is often hollow, a temporary reprieve before the spores awaken and the cycle of war begins anew. Yet it is not merely their numbers that make them unstoppable. The orcs do not need supply lines or logistics, nor do they require stability or civilization. Their society is one that thrives on destruction, their economy is built on plunder, and their technology is as crude as it is effective. They are stained by war itself, drawing strength from battle, growing more numerous with every skirmish, and spreading further with each engagement. And therein lies the paradox. For all their mindless destruction, for all their senseless war, the orcs may be the only thing preventing something even worse. For chaos, they are an obstacle, a force that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be tempted or corrupted, for the orcs need no promises of power or immortality. They already have what they desire: endless war. To the hive mind, they are an anomaly, a species that should have been consumed, but instead resists, growing stronger with every encounter. And in this crude, thoughtless way, the orcs act as a paradoxical counterbalance to the horrors that would otherwise consume the galaxy entirely. Could they be controlled? Could they be turned into a weapon against the true threats of the cosmos? Some have tried. Some believe that their simplicity, their raw and uncomplicated need for battle might be harnessed, manipulated, and directed against the enemies of all life. But the folly of such thinking is obvious. The orcs serve no master but their own instinct. Even if one could momentarily leash them, that leash would soon be broken, and the tide would turn once more. It is on the basis of this that a more unsettling question arises, for in a galaxy filled with horrors beyond comprehension, in a place where endless extinction events constantly threaten to crush the existence of mankind, if the Imperium of Man were to finally collapse, if humanity were reduced to but a dying ember, clinging to the desperate hope of survival, would the orcs then no longer see mankind as a worthy challenge on the battlefield and ultimately turn their attention elsewhere? Should that happen, then the orcs would potentially be the only thing standing between humanity and utter annihilation. What a true testament to irony it would be if the only thing safeguarding mankind's existence would be the very creatures they had fought for millennia. But until that day, the orcs remain what they have always been, a force of destruction without end, a calamity without purpose, a storm that rages across the stars, neither good nor evil, neither conquerors nor saviors. And as the combined galaxy struggles to crush them, none have ever truly overcome them. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and in war, the orcs will always thrive. Hey there, Hazmat here. This was probably the most fun I've had so far creating one of these episodes for Warhammer 40k. Seeing that the orcs are such a fun and fascinating part of the universe, I just can't wait to dive into the rest of the factions. If you enjoyed this episode, then make sure to let me know in the comments below. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the exclusive Warmog, the exclusive Gitchy Boy, and the exclusive Rat. The VIPs, Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminel Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Thornhill, Mordef Menace, Ryan, Slip, Stas Biestek, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you enjoy the content I produce and would like to help support the channel, consider signing up as a member on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. The link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.